Okay, guys, welcome to the third and final outcome of Unit 2, and of course, in fact, the Year 11 course. So this particular outcome is all around staffing a business, which to me personally is one of the most interesting parts of the course because of my own experience, but also, and again, because of my experience, practically, when you are running a business, is absolutely probably the most important part of running a business to get right. And in fact, within this particular video, we'll be kind of touching on why that is the case. So look, if you're not aware of kind of my background and what I've done, go back many years after university. I did a couple of things, but then I ended up working in leisure and hospitality for about 8 years. And that included a few years stint with McDonald's back in the UK. This is where I started out as an assistant manager. Then I became a store manager, or restaurant manager as they called them, and then a regional manager. So I ended up with 7 restaurants around the Manchester area. I was back in northwest England. And 7 restaurants, that would have included around 350, 400 staff at that time. So obviously one of my responsibilities was making sure that those restaurants were fully staffed with the best people that we could find. That's kind of what this entire outcome is all about. After that, I then moved on to a leisure business, which was a little more diverse. A number of bars, nightclubs, and I started out by running a couple of the businesses' key nightclub and bar operations around the UK. And again, my main responsibility, or one of my main responsibilities, was staffing those businesses appropriately. And then I became operations director of that business, so I was basically responsible for all of the business operations throughout the UK. And again, probably a total of about 500 staff in that particular business. From there, I actually went on and became a recruiter. So I actually earned my living doing the stuff that we're kind of talking about in this outcome. So I worked as a recruitment consultant for 10 years for a number of different businesses back in London and then here in Melbourne before I got into teaching. Basically, I was paid to staff other people's businesses. So in those 10 years, I filled jobs. So I found jobs for people or recruited many thousands of people, both in part-time roles and full-time roles, all different kinds of positions within a business. And then also when I took on management roles within the recruitment business, I was also responsible for finding my own staff as well. So basically, for a period of probably 18 years, staffing businesses was kind of one of the key things that I did. But certainly for the last 10 of those 18 years, that is all I did. Day in, day out, week in, week out, staffing businesses. So it's an area that I kind of, I guess, know a lot about, have a bit of a passion for and find particularly interesting. And this particular video is going to cover kind of fundamentally why this is such an important part of getting right in our whole running our business process. Now, getting into this video, what we're starting with here, and I guess what I'm doing is I'm kind of setting up the videos in the same way that if you do the Year 12 course, that we kind of run them. I start each video by showing the study design for this particular outcome. So all this is a snapshot of one particular page in the study design. So if you Googled Business Management VCE study design, it will take you to a couple of links. You go into the one which has a study design. It gives you a 24, 25 page document, which basically covers the entire units 1, 2, 3, and 4 for business management. And part of that includes the key knowledge that you're supposed to know and you will be tested on for each outcome. So that's what this is. This list, key knowledge, is the key knowledge dot points. That's why we use that terminology, because they are literally key knowledge dot points in the study design that sets out what you're supposed to know at the end of this outcome and what you are then tested on in the SAC. And then, of course, for Year 12 in the end of year exam as well. So what we do, I produce a video which covers each one of these key knowledge dot points, kind of as you've been doing so far this year. But the videos you've been watching so far are also based on these key knowledge dot points as well, just making this a little bit more explicit now so that you can kind of see where they originate from. And we don't just make these things up, and we're not just guided by a textbook. They actually come from the study design. So we are teaching the study design for the subject. So this video focusing on the relationship between the performance of staff and achieving business objectives. Okay. Already, this might sort of seem kind of obvious to you to some extent, but what we're going to do in this video is explain to you what this actual relationship is in such a way that you could answer the questions that you encounter in the SACs when you get that far. So starting off with, look, something that's fairly obvious, perhaps. Look, employees often are business's largest cost. That might not be so obvious. So what I'm saying here is that for a lot of businesses, if you could kind of separate or itemize the different costs that are incurred in running that business, very, very often your wage bill, the cost of your staff is actually the biggest single cost item of running a business. So in other words, if something is the biggest cost that you have, it kind of makes sense and it's something that you want to be getting right. Even if that is not the case and they're not your biggest cost item, your staff are without doubt your biggest asset. So you're running a business, the biggest asset, the biggest thing that you have going for you is your staff. And of course, that can also work the other way. If you don't have great staff, it's going to be the biggest negative to your big business, or the biggest thing that's going to hinder your business being successful and progressing. You're only ever going to achieve your objectives through your employees. Okay, it's only ever them that's going to achieve your objectives. Put that another way, it's only ever your employees who is going to achieve your business objectives. That kind of makes sense. At the end of the day, you might have machines, you might have equipment, you might have processes, but at the end of the day, it's your people that are doing the work, that are kind of, working within the business. They're the ones that are actually going to achieve your objectives. Now, I keep talking about achieving objectives, and you see there, it uses that term, achieving business objectives. So I guess, look, one thing we might just need to clarify is, what do we actually mean by achieving business objectives? Now, this term business objectives isn't completely new to us. Right back at the beginning of the Year 11 course, I think in the first outcome of Unit 1, we touched on, there was another key knowledge dot point which was all around the importance of having business objectives. When we're running a business, something to aim for, something to strive for, something to chase. If we have nothing to chase, nothing to strive for, how do we ever know if we've been successful? That kind of an idea. But even at that time, I don't think we got into too much detail around what specific objectives we might be talking about. So all I've done here is I've actually stolen these from one of the first outcomes, or the first outcome of the Year 12 course, where we look in a little bit more detail at what kind of business objectives might the owners and managers be trying to achieve. Pretty straightforward. There's 5. Again, these are listed on the study design, the Year 12 study design. The very first one there, making a profit. Kind of an obvious one. I would suggest, look, that's the predominant and underlying main objective of almost every business. Businesses might have many things they're trying to achieve, and often many things all at the same time. But I would say fundamentally behind all of that, the drive to make a profit is probably the number one and most fundamental objective for almost every business, large or small. And there's some others that you see there, increasing market share, shareholder expectations, that sort of stuff. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about business objectives. That's not an exhaustive list. There are potentially hundreds, but these are the kind of things that we're talking about with this particular key knowledge dot point when we're talking about achieving business objectives. Now, we need to explain this relationship, okay? So there's like lots of different ways to do this. There isn't just one way of explaining it, but as a starting point, we could say, look, the better our staff are performing, the more chance there is that we're going to reach whichever of those goals or other goals that we've set for ourselves, there's more chance that we're going to achieve those if our staff are performing well. Relate this to a sport. Okay, if you're in a basketball team, could be a footy team, whatever it is, your main overarching objective is to win the game. Now, very clearly, there is more chance of you winning the game if the players are performing well. And that's all we're saying here is there's more chance of our business performing well. In other words, outperforming the competition, maybe increasing market share, selling more, making more money, if our staff are performing well. So very, very simply, that kind of explains the relationship. Okay, the relationship between employees' performance and the achievement of objectives. Well, if employees are performing well, there's more chance of achieving those objectives. So basically, we've kind of answered that key knowledge dot point right there. But some questions you need to expand a little. So if questions are for maybe 2, 3, 4 marks here, all we need to do is just expand a little on that explanation and look at kind of why that is the case. And there isn't just one way to do this. There's kind of lots of different ways to do this. We're just going to explore a couple of different ways that you could kind of expand on that explanation. So the better our staff are performing, the more chance there is that we're going to reach whichever goals we're working towards. We kind of just said that. One little explanation or kind of extra add-on to that could be, look, if your employees are feeling motivated and valued by the business, there's more chance they're going to be performing at the best. So kind of what we're doing here is introducing another layer. So we know that the better our staff are performing, the better we're going to do as a business. But now we're kind of reeling this back in and making an extra step here. So if employees are feeling motivated and valued, and this absolutely makes sense. And if you think about if you have a job, or imagine if you had a job, if you felt motivated in your workplace, and if you felt valued by the management in some way, there's more chance that you're going to perform better. Yeah. And if you're performing better and everyone else is performing better, there is more chance the business achieving its goals. Flip that around. If we have staff underperforming in our business, then they may start to make mistakes. The quality of either the product or the service that we're trying to deliver to our customers is going to reduce. And that means there is less chance that we're going to achieve our business goals. So it's just starting to kind of build a little more complexity, not exactly super complex, but just kind of expanding on that argument or this link between the two things. So summing up there, what is the relationship between the performance of staff to achieving business objectives? So going back to that original question, what I'm saying to you here is all you need to do is provide an explanation of this link. Okay, that question mark there. What is that link? The relationship. Just think of, what is the relationship between two things? What is the link between two things? And all you need to do is make some logical steps to get from one to the other. So in this case, from staff performance to achieving objectives. So again, some arguments you might use to explain that relationship or that link. Staff are working productively, they're helping to lower the costs of the business, because if they're working productively, it means the business is being more efficient. Lowering the costs leads directly to an increase in profit. Profit is revenue or income, take away the costs. So if we're reducing the cost, obviously profit then lifts. So there's another way to explain this relationship. Another way you might do it, and again, if you're answering this question in relation to a particular case study, as we know often happens with business management questions, one or two of these explanations might kind of seem more valid or more relevant than others. It depends on the information you're being given. But in certain cases, maybe this one would make more sense to use. High-performing staff are likely to be punctual and hardworking and provide helpful, friendly customer service. If more of your staff are performing or behaving in that way, there's more chance that we're going to generate increased sales, because at the end of the day, customers like good customer service. If you have a reputation for customer service, you're going to get more sales. And also, If you're giving good customer service, then those customers are more likely to come back and be repeat customers for you. So generating increased sales, which could assist in the objective of increasing market share. So in other words, taking sales away from your competitors. So there's another way. Like I say, there's not one way to explain this. These are just a range of different ways. One final way, if staff are performing to a high standard, it means they're likely to be producing higher quality products or services. And if that's the case, again, there's more chance that sales are going to increase, therefore directly assisting with the objective of increasing revenue. And that's basically it. All we're talking about here is answering these questions where you need to explain this relationship between the idea of staff performance over here and achieving objectives there. And that video there just kind of covered a few different ways in which you could explain that relationship in just a series of little logical steps that gets you from the one place to the other. And that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video for Key Knowledge 2. Cheers for now.